As the month of May comes to a close, I like to use the opportunity to make Indy 500 themed content in honor of the great race. Today's story is one many subscribers on here may have witnessed, assuming they have been watching racing long enough. I certainly remember where I was when I got the news. We're gonna rewind to April 12, 2017, when one of the biggest racing announcements I've personally ever heard was made. The day they announced that two-time Formula One world champion Fernando Alonso was set to skip the Monaco Grand Prix to make his Indy 500 debut. A full-time F1 driver participating in the great race for the first time in ages. But what made Alonso try it? What team did he join? And how did he do it? Sit back, relax, as we revisit one of the coolest moments in recent racing memories. My name is Intern, I talk wheel, and this is Fernando Alonso's first Indy 500 Revisited. So basically, in the early stages of the 2017 F1 season, it was pretty evident that McLaren was in for another difficult season. The reason I say another is because in 2017, it was year 3 of the reunion between McLaren and Honda. Back in the 80s, this pairing won multiple drivers' and constructors' championships, but in 2015, the only team they beat was Manor. Safe to say it was not going well in the slightest, and 2 years later, nothing had really changed. Well, at least, not on the track, but behind the scenes. There was one major change that was the catalyst for today's story. McLaren announced their new executive director a few months prior to the 2017 F1 season. His name was Zak Brown. After ending his racing career to focus on his marketing business and race team United Autosports, McLaren signed Brown to steer the ship for their endeavors, and steer it he did. Brown's marketing expertise took center stage upon seeing the state of McLaren in Formula One that year. Off the back of a dismal Australian Grand Prix that saw Alonso DNF with engine issues, Brown realized the constant racing at the back coupled with the car's poor reliability was destined to frustrate their star. It was then that he jokingly pitched an idea. Instead of running the Monaco Grand Prix in May, why not skip the round and attempt the Indy 500? Just one day after the idea was pitched to Fernando, he was in, and the team got started on making the dream a reality. By April, the announcement was made. For the first time since 1984, an active F1 driver would attempt the Indy 500. To do this, Alonso would pilot a McLaren Honda, but not the F1 car. Rather, an Andretti Autosport entered McLaren, powered by Honda's INDYCAR engine with a big blue 29 on it. The car was decked out in a papaya livery, reminiscent of McLaren's Indy 500 winning past. This wasn't just a return for F1 participation in the race, but McLaren's as well. McLaren won 3 Indy 500s, with their most recent being all the way in 1976 with Johnny Rutherford, but they left the sport in 1979 to focus on F1. To say the racing world was excited was an understatement. Alonso's first test at Indianapolis Motor Speedway garnered 1.8 million views as of me writing this. In all, he did 110 laps and completed the private test at Indy in the lead up to the rookie orientation test, in which he had to complete laps at certain speeds that gradually increased. After passing the rookie test, it was now time for practice, and Alonso had a good showing in the sessions leading up to Saturday qualifying. He was 4th in FP3, 4th in FP4, and 4th in FP5. But come Saturday, Alonso would get a first glimpse of the level of danger at play at the Yard of Bricks.
In the 231s, the first driver to put any lap in the 231. So forward trouble! Oh, what a crash! What a terrible crash!
Up and over, car flipped. Came back, up and over.
That was a hard hit.
Bourdais was on a run destined to go to P1 before his accident. He suffered multiple pelvic fractures and a fractured hip that took him not just out of quali, not just out of the Indy 500, but almost the entire season. As eye-opening as the crash was, Alonso would not be deterred and set a 4-lap average of 230.034 miles an hour, the 7th fastest of the day, and locking him into Sunday's pole shootout alongside his Andretti teammates of Takuma Sato, Marco Andretti, and defending Indy 500 winner Alexander Rossi. An engine change on Sunday saw Alonso nearly miss out on setting a 4-lap run, But alas, he did, and even went provisional pole before he eventually dropped to the second row in P5. After a strong showing in Carb Day that saw him line up 5th, the big day had finally come. While Alonso was attempting Indy, McLaren called Jenson Button out of his sabbatical from the sport to fill in for him. He actually had a decent showing, making it to Q3 in quali, but it didn't matter because of grid pens. He'd retire from the race after a collision with Pascal Wehrlein. Meanwhile, as the pace laps were underway, Alonso prepared himself for one of his biggest challenges in his racing career, and as the green flag waved, it begun. He kept himself in the top 10 in the early stages and climbed as high as P4 before pitting on lap 31. As the field pit, the 77 car of Jay Howard ran out of fuel and slowed down the backstretch, and it looked to cause the first caution of the day, but managed to get to the pits safely. Alonso was comfy in the top 5, but showed his hand early, passing Alexander Rossi after pit stops on lap 37 to lead his first Indy 500. He'd hold the lead for 6 laps until Rossi got by him on lap 42. The two would take turns leading while the other stayed behind to save fuel, and the strategy worked swimmingly until lap 53. The cameras cut to debris all over the first 2 turns and Scott Dixon's car in half. Well, remember Jay Howard? Yeah, well, despite being 7 laps down, he was still chugging along. Unfortunately, he chugged into the wall and his car bounced back into the middle of the track and right into Scott Dixon's path, resulting in one of the craziest crashes in the race's history. The race would be put under red flag for repairs with Alonso still ahead, and the red flag break gave him time to catch his breath. He'd lead the field back to green on lap 61 but lost it shortly after to Rossi. Fernando then took a backseat in P4 while 3 of his teammates traded the lead amongst themselves. A 2-car incident was the second yellow of the day and the race resumed on lap 76 with Alonso still close to the leaders. This would be how the race went until a crash by former Indy 500 winner Buddy Lazier put the race under caution 22 laps after the halfway mark. Alonso got by teammate Ryan Hunter-Reay for the lead on lap 130 right before a debris caution. On the restart, Hunter-Reay would get that lead back only for Fernando to take it back a lap later. Shortly after, the first cause of concern struck for Alonso as Hunter-Reay's engine went kaput. With a teammate out, Alonso and his remaining Andretti teammates carried on. He'd get shuffled back as the laps passed by due to differing strategies, but another cause for concern struck with less than 50 to go when Charlie Kimball's engine blew. Kimball may not have been Alonso's teammate, but he was also using a Honda engine, making it the second one to blow in the race. Honda had a history of engine-related issues leading up to the 500 in practice, and now concern for them was higher than ever. Alas, they soldiered on. With less than 25 laps left, Alonso realized it was crunch time and started to climb up the field to get himself into the mix for the race win. He would fend off Tony Kanaan for 7th, but coming down the main stretch with 21 laps to go, Fernando Alonso became the 3rd victim of a Honda engine failure.
Flag, car in trouble. It's Alonso. Well,
so sorry, man.
Listen to the public. That is a racer.
You know, it was actually poetic. Climbing out of open-wheel cars with a Honda power unit exhaling copious amounts of smoke was actually a normal day for Fernando. But that was Formula 1, not here. Not at the biggest race in the world in front of millions of fans. Here it was just a disappointing end to a promising oval racing debut. As he climbed from the car, he was showered in applause as the crowd thanked him for allowing them to see him chase history and do something so outside of the box for an active F1 driver. Alonso's teammate Takuma Sato would go on to win his first Indy 500. Despite recording a 24th place with a DNF and 24 laps led to his name, Fernando did walk away with the 2017 Indy 500 Rookie of the Year award for his efforts. He'd come back twice after this. 2019 saw him get dramatically bumped by a then upstart Hunkus Racing entry driven by Kyle Kaiser, one of the most embarrassing moments of Alonso's career, albeit mostly due to the team's poor preparation for the moment. In 2020, he'd race again with McLaren's new INDYCAR team, but was uncompetitive all May and came home a lowly P21. All in all, though there may not have been much success in the final results, Alonso's first Indy 500 was one of those times as a racing fan that made one say, "What a time to be alive." It was a moment that reminded the world not only how good of a racing driver Fernando was, but how difficult a challenge the Indy 500 is. Whether or not he'll give it another go is still a question yet to be answered. My name is Intern, I talk wheel, and thanks for watching.